This is a recording of a journal article published by Nature in 1923. The Conquest of Malaria. In Sir Ronald Ross's memoirs, information is to be found which will interest the conventional wide circle of readers, and that the subjects treated must appeal to the imperialist, the political economist, the sanitarian of the tropics, and the cosmopolitan science research worker, nor will those who respond to the call of the East fail to find interest in details of scenery and travels in India and Burma. Among the items illustrating the importance of research in aiding the well-being of communities and nations are discussed the conditions under which the discovery of the agency of malaria conveyance was made as a result of the laborious experimental efforts of the author. In the section dealing with this subject will be found a tale devoid of technicalities of relentless search for a scientific truth, with its recurring disappointments, baffled schemes, renewed hopes, and ultimate victory, which, in entrancing interest, may compete with Sherlock Holmes's efforts at his best. For centuries, the problem of malaria afforded a favorite subject in medical writings for opinions and disputations. By 1880, Laveran had found the Plasmodium malariae in the blood of human beings, but the vital matter in respect to prevention as to how the protozoan gained entrance to man remained a mystery. In 1894, Manson excogitated an hypothesis as to malaria agency, which was published in detail in the Lancet in 1309. Ross was in England in that year. Between the younger man eager to remedy the distressing conditions arising from this cause in India, and the older glad to find an enthusiast in malaria prevention, there arose a mutual professional interest in interchange of views, which continued during Ross's labor in that country. It has since been insisted that Ross was a mere marionette under the control of Manson, indeed that he was selected by the latter for this particular work, and that Manson was the discoverer of malaria. Where admiration for Manson can justly be given in this matter is in contemplating his reasons for framing the hypothesis of 1894, namely that it might prove an incentive to research on malaria which, as he asserted, is far and away the most important of the many problems of tropical empire, that empire upon which so much of our present and of our prospective national prosperity depends. No claim to originality was made by him, and with the one exception, added in 1898 to the original conjecture of 1894, that the flagella of the Plasmodium were flagellated spores, which was an error, no originality is recognizable. By dovetailing various views of acknowledged authorities with the analogy of filariasis, as previously suggested by Laveran, he attempted to meet the then current opinion of transmission of malaria to man through the medium of air or water. The memoirs show that up to 1896, Ross had labored to prove the hypothesis of Manson, and that mosquitoes, fleas, bugs, horseflies, and cockroaches had been duly examined, while direct experiments upon human beings had been made as to conveyance by water, with the result that he informed Manson that the belief is growing upon me that the disease is communicated by the bite of the mosquito. To this Manson replied, "It may be the mosquito conveys the parasite by biting, but I do not think so. At all events, I do not think so directly." Ross now informed Manson that he was dying to go away to some regular hotbed of malaria, the object obviously being to secure possible factors in intense occurrence. He obtained short leave from military duty and proceeded to a spot popularly held to be the haunt of a deadly form of malaria, Seeger Ghat in the Nilgiris Hills. This resolve was the turning point of his investigation. A detail concerning his return to Bangalore, where he was stationed, does not appear in his memoirs. A friend perceived a mounted man approaching him, gesticulating excitedly. This proved to be Ross, who shouted, "I've got it! I've got it!" Naturally, a fortune by a sweepstake or the like was sensed, but a demand for enlightenment elicited the banal reply, "I've got the fever." He had been able to concentrate attention upon air, water, and the mosquito as factors, with the crowning joy of suffering from fever. He was able to adopt a mathematical line of reasoning, which pointed to the chances of the malarial germ being conveyed by the mosquito direct to man rather than in a form diluted by air or water. Thereafter, he could say with Newton that he did not deal with hypotheses but with facts. On August 20th, 1897, Ross identified the first stage of development of the plasmodium in the mosquito. It would deprive the reader of interesting details were the further history of his efforts traced. Suffice it to say that by July 9th, 1898, Ross had not proved, but had disproved Manson's hypothesis of 1894. Ross has roundly declared time after time, and in various forms, that it was Manson's great induction which did it, nothing else, and that he had received advice from Manson. These affirmations have been misconstrued. Lister, after entering judicially into the attempted piracy of Ross's discovery by certain Italian savants, gave his opinion thus: "The discovery of the development of the parasite in the mosquito was due solely and simply to Major Ross, who had shown absolute candor, perfect openness of mind, and a readiness to recognize the work of others." Throughout the memoirs, these attributes are unconsciously displayed by the author. The advice as to technique given by Manson was based upon special knowledge of filariasis. It was found inapplicable by Ross to his requirements. It was, nevertheless, courteously acknowledged. The great induction referred to the function of the flagella, and, when deprived of Manson's erroneous suggestion as to these being spores, did not differ materially from the views expressed previously by Laveran and Manneberg. Ross, however, justly held that, by insisting that the flagella had some undiscovered yet important biological function, Manson had provided an incentive to research, which he handsomely acknowledged. Manson had the gratification of finding that he had been the factor of inducing one man, among hundreds of potential workers to whom he had made an appeal broadcast, to undertake research on what he believed to be the logical outcome of well-ascertained facts, and the most promising guide to fresh facts. That one man was Ross, whose inner consciousness as early as 1890 to 93 had been stirred to discover means for averting the misery incident to malaria in the populations of India. In his poetic record, under the title Indian Fevers, he had written, "O God, reveal through all this thing obscure, the unseen, small, but million-murdering cause." And, on the day when he realized that his invocation had been answered, wrote, "This day relenting, God hath placed within my hand a wondrous thing, and God be praised, I know this little thing a myriad men will save." Ross had definitely undertaken his research, not in the quest of abstract science, but in the interests of preventive medicine. His next hope, therefore, was to be allowed to apply methods based on his discovery. The government of India, in which country 1 million deaths occur yearly from malaria, however, not only failed to issue so much as the usual stereotyped thanks of government, but also refused to promise him facilities. Rather than leave matters thus, he retired from the Indian medical service, with a pension 1/4 the value he might have secured by continued service. But this personal sacrifice, added to the considerable private expenditure during his investigation, enabled him to complete his work, by demonstrating the applicability of its benefits in West Africa and Ismailia. The King-Emperor has conferred honors, not, however, upon the recommendation of the government of India, upon the man who had made, as Manson said, the discovery of the century. Following the adoption of anti-malaria methods based on knowledge gained by Ross, invaliding and sickness in the British garrisons in the tropics have been reduced to an extent which must represent many thousand pounds, irrespective of human suffering, saved. great mercantile firms have extended trade to areas they formerly shunned from dread of the malaria fiend, and these share the benefits of commerce consequent upon the opening of the Panama Canal, the construction of which had proved impossible in the hands of the French, owing to the ghastly mortality of employees and the absence of Ross's methods during the Great War, according to the official history. The loss of the strength to the armies from the effects of malaria was great, and but for the preventive methods adopted it might have been incalculably greater. What has the nation, the parliament of which voted 30,000 to Jenner in token of gratitude, done for this practical philanthropist? In Memoirs, covering many years and many localities, the author has left little room for criticism as to accuracy. At page 223, the date of his first gleam of success is erroneously stated in the text. Fortunately, the next page is faced by a facsimile which correctly shows the date to have been August 20th, 1897. At page 327, in referring to Half-Kind's good work, it is evident the date 1916 should read 1896. At page 198, in reference to the use of Bird's malaria, the context would show that the intention is to refer to 1896 and not 1906. The Madras presidency can claim freedom from the conception that, though plague had broken out for some years in China, almost no precautions had been taken to exclude it from India. It is inaccurate to describe Mr. E. H. Hankin, the able bacteriologist, as the discoverer of the mode of purifying wells by permanganate of potassium. He did not initiate the method. To him is the credit of showing that the cholera vibrio is killed by the chemical, and is not starved out of existence by its action on organic matter. The Hindu title of Maharaja, used in connection with the independent potentate mentioned at page 101, will doubtless be corrected in future editions of the work.